don't think we've talked about the beings coming in slowly yet. So how they come in caricature first before they come in true to life. So we'll go into that a little bit. And yeah, I don't think we've gone into some of my discovery, and the discovery is a work in progress, mind you, but of the different ways that calls can come in over the crystal. Let's go ahead and start there. So everybody knows Isza. Let's see if I can show you her close up, nice and straight. Isza again is a very mildly citrine quartz crystal. The characteristics that she has that makes her ideal for this work are the teardrop shape, 1, 2, sharp edges, not rounded edges, sharp edges. She has extreme clarity through some areas, and then cloudiness in others. A combination of the two is very helpful. As is, she has a large rain. I mean, it's just a huge, like this big, silver dollar sized rainbow cluster right in her center. And again, that provides a lot of the color in the frames that you see. So together, all of those characteristics, I feel, are what are important to me being able to do what it is I do, and getting the video or photo, I should say, evidence of the beings who are calling, transmitting through the crystal. I was recently in Los Angeles. I took a little trip up there and visited some crystal shops just because I wanted to stop and see. I wanted to test some of my hypotheses with some other crystals. I discovered not only is it really hard to find teardrop shaped crystals right now, but Isza really is unique. I could find no other crystal like her, like literally no other crystal even close to like her. Yeah, and I tried to sit down with them to take my camera in, and yeah, it was very, very different. I think that all of the characteristics that she has that I just said are really critical to doing this work. And so that'll take us into the different types of calls. When I hold this crystal can see me. This crystal can access all of the information that's within me. This crystal can access all the information attempting to connect with me. And it's how the work can be done through the crystal. But one thing that can happen when I hold her is that some of my information, some of my stories can literally embed in here. Not only can my personal stories of my Casey person embed in here, again, beings that are connected with me and connecting to me while we're doing this work can further be embedded into this crystal, sort of like a voice message that's left for you that you later come back and get. And so a lot of times I'm going into the crystal, I'm going in and I'm gathering up my messages, as it were, my pre-recorded messages. That's fascinating, right? The history of the crystal itself also is in there, as well as, goodness, likely anybody who's ever held her, picked her up, all of that can be found within the crystal. But I think mostly what she holds is her own history. It's my working belief or hypothesis at this point that at some point someone embedded some information in here for me to retrieve prior to me actually receiving the crystal in real life, in real time. That's fascinating also. But mostly it's what my own higher fractal consciousness is pushing through to me, through to the crystal, embedding in the crystal, recording in the crystal, for me to pick up the crystal and photograph, to show you, at later dates. And then the other type of call that can come in is a live call. The phone is ringing, you're picking it up. Someone live is on the other end. It's happening in real time. It's not pre-recorded. And this happens in only one way that I've garnered so far. I can't say that, maybe in a couple, but the biggest way that it comes through is with the sun. So if I pick this up and sit where the rays of the sun can actually hit or strike the crystal, then senders on the other end of that ray can beam in a live call. And these are fascinating. When this happens, the being that I'm seeing in here is not only coming right in, they're clear as day. I don't have to go looking around or, asking any questions. They're just right there, large as life, real as can be. The one thing about this type of call, though, is it doesn't seem to embed real well when I go to take pictures. So again, exploration and inquiry into all of that is always going on, but that's sort of my observation at this point. There's the two types of calls. The story in the stone, the record in the rocks. These are not in real time. Again, they're left for me. And then there's the live calls, live transmissions. The phone is ringing, someone's right there. This is happening, this call is happening in real time. And again, these ones are harder to capture in the photographs. One day I'm going to have to look more into that. There's a few crystals I work with, and they work together in a group. I don't think I've ever shown you. So I have the crystals here to show you. You just saw Isza, and this is George. I love George. George is my healer. Extraordinary crystal, extraordinary healer. I won't go into some of the things that he helps me with, but it's almost immediate where other people might go for an ibuprofen or a Tylenol for pain relief. George is mine. And he just works immaculately in almost real time. So he sleeps with me at all times. Isza doesn't sleep with me. She's set off into an area for herself. I noticed that my dreaming is very different if Isza sleeps with me. So the next three crystals I'm going to show you are the ones who actually sleep with me. So that was George. He's my healer. And then this is Rael. There's a masculine and a feminine aspect. Rael is the masculine, Rael is the feminine, and she is a trance channeler, a citrine quartz trance channeler, and sold to me at the time as a Lemurian. I don't know how much I know or think or believe about all of that, but it's how she came to me. And yeah, when it comes to channeling, dream recall, embedding dream messages into my conscious state of attention, that's what Rael helps me with. And then Atan, not Aten, Atan, a very different being. You see him as all on through the crystal. She's just a Celicite geode. Let's see if I can figure out which way to have her go. And she's extraordinary. So Atan is the entity that connects with me through this crystal. Rael is the entity that connects through the trance channeler, and George. It's funny, George is who connects with me through my healer. And I've seen George. I've actually photographed him from this crystal, and yeah, he looks like an Egyptian black male. Yeah. But he comes through to me as George. So those are the crystals that I work most closely with for the dream work, dream awareness work. lucid dreaming, out-of-body experience, ET contact work. And now that we're talking about the ETs, let's go ahead and talk about how the beings, when they start coming through to us, come through gradually. It's a slow process. It's a gradual process. It's a by your permission process. It's as you are ready, as your central nervous system is ready, as this will only be of benefit to you. And this works a lot like the OBEs. Some of you have listened since the beginning know this, but others of you won't. When I go out of body, I'm one of those people who can just stay conscious through the entire shift, walking to the bed or area where I'm going to lay myself down, laying myself down, closing my eyes, and staying conscious through the entire shift inward through the process of literally flipping my fields inside out to where I am an awareness field, and inside I'm this person rather than the other way around, which is how it seems more when we're in physical space. So this is just how I shift from physical space out into the wider reality. And as I'm doing this, there's a lot of visual phenomena that takes place. And a part of that is, while I'm still quite some distance, scenes appearing in that distance that look like cartoons. But then you get closer and they begin to look a bit more caricature, half cartoon, half real. And then you get wholly there and they just look wholly real, just like our everyday reality does. So this phenomena I noticed first through the OBE, but I notice also through the crystal. When the beings are coming through, they are coming through in caricature formations first. This is for a few different reasons. One is for potential children's books down the road, and another is because they come in with our permission. So these are positive oriented beings. We already know that. And the ones that are more type 2 are also asking permission, are also associated with my template, are also being lifted and advanced and graduated through this whole process. And so they come through in caricature first. They don't want to scare us. And then again, as we give permission, as our central nervous systems are ready, they come in more closer and true to life. And that's going to be the key feature of this video. I'm going to show you a slideshow of maybe 50 of the beings that have come through the most real to life, so that you can see a series of them all in a row. Again, these things impact the awareness. They let us know a few things. One of those things is that this is real. And so sometimes they come in real to life looking just like us. These are humans, if not Earth humans, still human and looking just like us. And then others will be humanoid, but appearing very differently, as you've seen before in the past, and then some wholly different. The stream of the beings coming through is coming through faster than ever, now. Anytime I sit with the crystal, 12 to 20 beings are going to come through. I don't make all of these into portraits, but a collection of them I do. And that sort of leads us maybe into one more thing we'll add in this video, and that is how I am making the portraits now. So I'm taking original frames that have the being in it, but also a whole lot else, and I'm isolating the being. I'm centering them in the frame. I'm mirroring one side to the other to face them forward for you so that you can meet them eye to eye, so that you can take your gaze into their gaze and use these frames for contact. I didn't go into very much depth on any of these topics, so if anybody has any questions or want to dive in any deeper to anything I just said, you can write me at any time through the contact on the website or in the comments. If this is posted, it will be posted on YouTube or anywhere else that it happens to be posted. Just ask the questions and I'm happy to dive in deeper. Remember, you can see the beings at any time over on the Patreon. Again, we are an unconditional platform. Nothing is behind a paywall. Everything is out in the open and available for everyone to view. I post there 2 or 3 times a week, at least 2 with the beings, so you can see a steady stream of them that come through there. They also have an interesting new section there where I can section everything apart. So if you're only interested in the beings, you can, it's called collections, and you can just go there and scroll through them. Anyone who wants to support the Patreon and the continuation of the work can and is more than welcome, but it is not now and never will be required. Really, we just want you to have the contact and to enjoy the beings coming through to our human consensus. As many of you who have been following this work since its onset probably already know, video recording has never been possible before, because when I'm going into the crystal, the camera is right up on the crystal, and shifting over from photo mode to video mode enlarges the frame. So it takes the visible range and expands it out beyond what's, what can really come through. Instead of the being centered in the center of the frame or something along these lines, the eyes will be way out at the outside edges of the corner, so you can't really see. But this past week, Quinn is the being who comes through to me the most, the easiest, just all of the time. If I sit down with the crystal, Quinn is going to be there. And let's see, Quinn is right here. He comes through in just about every kind of format possible. But this week, he let me video record him. Everything stayed far enough to the back that when I clicked over to video, he was still visible in the frame. And so I have that to show you today. But just to say briefly, inside the crystal, how do I say this? Inside the crystal is like a fractal geometry. And there's layers upon layers upon layers upon layers. And when I'm looking through these layers, I see them all. But only some are going to show up in a still frame. And usually I try to bring way to the front the main being who's presenting for everyone, just so everybody can get a good glimpse of our galactic and universal neighbors. So if you can imagine circles coming out of circles, coming out of circles, coming out of circles, all of the circles overlapping. And if you can imagine that these are faces overlapping, because they overlap, each face is going to share an eye. Okay, and so one half of the face as one being, and for all due purposes, the other half of the face, the other being. You have one eye that belongs to the one and one eye that belongs to the other. And so some of these you'll see, here's Lars. I've just mirrored the one side of his face to the other side of his face to get Lars himself there rather than half and half. And I'll show you some of these examples. As we go along this, I'm going to show you a few things. So first, I'm going to show you raw frames. Now, the raw frames can include a few different styles of renderings. So one is completely non-portrait. Okay, so this is not anything like we're seeing behind me here. It's just raw footage and somebody sticking his head out, as it were, amidst a lot of other mess, lights and refractions of light and grayness and all of that kind of stuff. So they're not pretty, they're not portrait. That's one style of raw frame, and I'll give you an example here. The next style is, as you're seeing behind me, portrait style raw frames. These are frames I don't have to do anything with. They come through fully intact and either a portrait style or near portrait style, near enough to where I don't have to do anything to the frame whatsoever, except for maybe sharpen it up a bit, sometimes brighten it up a bit. And then the other one are stories, entire clusters of beings coming through, an entire story around a certain family set, if you will, of beings. And so all of this can come through and more. The next kind of frame that might come through is one, again, where you get the one eye of the one being and the one of the other. So it's all I really have to do is mirror the eye itself to the other side. I'm going to show you a collection of those frames here now. Another thing that might happen when the stories come through is the main being will be right out in front, but the rest of the story, it doesn't come through so pretty. It looks more like mess than anything else for all of you. I can still read the data, the details, the beings. But say I want to just show you the main being. I'm going to show you an example of one of those style frames here now. The next thing that can happen is I can get interference in the frame. And so maybe the light is coming through in a way that is making a flash, a big flash through a portion of the frame. Or perhaps there's a field in the crystal that the light is catching and causing some distortion in the frame. Or in some of the areas, we have clarity and not enough inclusions to block my actual fingers on the other side of the crystal. And so in part of the frame, what you're getting is my fingertip. And my fingertip is either in the way or just causing less of a beautiful picture in the frame itself of the being. So I'll show you what I do when that happens in a selection of those frames here now. Now, before we get to the video, I just want to say a couple of things about the video itself. Again, it's not going to be an experience of exactly what's happening with me when I go into the crystal and what I myself am seeing, because I'm able to see so many different layers through the light. And even in the video footage, those aren't necessarily going to come through for you because, again, my camera is right up on the crystal and everything is so close up that it only gives me very little wiggle room to navigate in there when I'm exploring through the crystal. It requires me oscillating the crystal and moving the camera and catching the light, in certain geometrical ways in order for me to capture what I do. And I just don't have that wiggle room in the video footage. And so you'll see a bit of the wiggle room, but you won't see the being in its full light in the way that I'm actually seeing it live. But you will get to go into the crystal and you will get to see how Quinn and other beings manifest, that they really are there, that they're really being captured, and how it is they begin to appear. Okay, Isza is the main crystal I'm working with for the crystal contacts, the crystal transmissions, as I will often call them. Isza is a citrine quartz crystal. She's in a teardrop shape. Quartz crystal is six-sided. If I turn her upside down here, you can maybe see the six sides. She works really great with me. You can see she's just smaller than my hand. She's very easy for me to maneuver in my hand when I'm doing the captures, and she's just like glue. She just fits in there like a glove. Okay, so for me, the biggest part of the process is listening for the call. So when someone is calling me through this crystal, I can feel it. I will start to have the idea to pick up the crystal, that I need to start picking up the crystal, that I need to start working with the crystal. It'll just keep pushing itself more and more forward. And this is a very large part of my process. And once I do pick up the crystal, the first part of my process is to connect with Isza, to connect with the crystal itself. Okay, I want to not only shift my brainwave patterns wholly out of beta, I want to shift my brainwave patterns into the frequency match of the being that is calling. This is going to take me into a deep alpha, and as I begin working with the crystal, it's going to take me into the theta waves. And being able to function in the theta waves is not something that's easy. They, as you may know if you go out of body yourself, are very intoxicating. You may need to employ some things to keep you focused in the reality and on what you're attempting to do here, which is bring through a wave from another point in time to your wave here in this point in time through the mean of the crystal. Fascinating process, hard to wrap your mind around. I know that this is actually taking place, but let me say this: if you can do it with this, you can do it with this. The process of opening a window, I will mention right here now, is a process of triangulation. So if I'm wanting to go out beyond the body of this crystal itself, I am going to pick a point, and it's going to be a triangulated point. This face, and this face meet right here at this point. And I'm going to take the camera, or just my gaze, if I'm doing it just for myself, right into the point in this crystal. And windows are going to start to open. Fascinating, because I can actually see the windows open. And you can see the light change as you go in. The light waves, the sun beams, are carrier waves, and they can carry information, carry data that can be sent to me, processed through the crystal, and received here on my end. Fascinating, right? And I can go into this crystal, into the crystal itself. That's going to be going into the elemental realm. Okay, and the elemental realm, I can read this rock. There is a story in this stone, and I can capture those as well. The process and the work that we're doing with the crystal is so that we can take what is an invisible experience within myself and visibly show you. People in physical space often want something, some physical proof, some physical mean to understand what it is you're saying, and this is just something that we're doing to help that along. So each of the brain waves and the frequencies within each of the major brain waves has its own visual and visible spectrum. Okay, so when we're in the beta brainwave, we're principally seeing our 3D physical reality, and only our Earth-like 3D physical reality, not 3D physical reality anywhere else. So it's a lockdown sort of wave, which isolates you in a particular point of focus so that you can have a particular experience. And other elements of what exists right here while you're right here in this wave doesn't get through to you. Okay, and so when we shift into the alpha wave, this is a whole nother frequency pattern, a whole nother frequency wave. And there's data, there's information in this wave that isn't in the beta wave. And so you can see that as you shift your brainwave patterns into these other waves, this additional information is going to come through. And as it comes through to you, it can be focused through the crystal and captured with the camera for others to see. But it first requires you seeing it. Okay, and what's really happening is you're transferring the contents of what's in your own awareness, what's in your own visual field through the crystal and onto the camera. It's not just the being who's presenting in the frame. It is the frequency wave of that being. It is the frequency waves that I am housing, emitting as I am getting the capture. And so all of those frequency waves are in there. Where these beings are is in there.